Hello, so in this video, we're going to be working through question 11 here. Let's give it a read and see what we can do with it. This is also a calculator question, so make sure you have your calculator nearby as well. It says a cylinder has a volume of 100 centimeters cubed. Give 3 different combinations of radius and height measurements that give this volume. Give these lengths correct to 2 decimal places. So let's begin by just generating our formula for a cylinder. We know that a cylinder looks like this. It has a circle for its top and bottom. If we want to find the volume of this thing, we're going to find the area of the base, which is just pi r squared, because that's the area of a circle, and we times it by the height of it. So it's going to be pi r squared times by h for height. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write that down over here. My volume is pi r squared h. Perfect. Now, we know that the volume is going to be 100. So in other words, what this is telling me right here is that V is equal to 100. So I'm going to put 100 into the V spot. And that means it's going to be pi r squared h. So I'm putting that, I'm just subbing V equals 100 into that. Perfect. Now, what I need to figure out is what my radius and height is going to be. So in other words, what is my radius going to be and what is my height going to be? Now this is pretty tricky at the moment because there's 2 unknowns and I need to figure out what they're going to be. And remember, these have to correspond with one another. So what I'm going to do here to make my life easier is I'm just going to say, you know what? Let R be any random number. And you could choose any number that you want here. Let's choose 3. So I'm going to say let R be equal to 3. And now I just need to find what my corresponding value for H is going to be. To write this out nice and efficiently, this is what you would do. You'd say let my radius R be equal to 3 and then solve for H. And that's what you're going to do. And now hopefully you can see that this is just an equations type question. So we've got 100 as my volume. Then I've got pi, and then instead of writing r, I'm going to sub 3 into that spot. So it's going to be 3 squared, and then I have h here. Then we keep on going. This is going to be 100 equals pi, then 3 squared is 9, and then I've got h here. Then I'm going to get 100 equals 9 pi h. So I'm just kind of rewriting it with my 9 at the front there. And now I need to solve it for h, which means I need h to be by itself. And for h to be by itself, what do I need to do? Well, just as we were dealing with equations, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to divide both sides by 9 pi. I'm going to divide both sides by 9 pi. Because what I'm doing there is I'm going this side divided by 9 pi, this side divided by 9 pi. Remember, the reason why we're dividing is because it's 9 times pi times h. So to undo that timesing, to undo that multiplication, I divide. So this will cancel with that. And now what I'm going to end up with is I'm going to get 100 over 9 pi over here is equal to h. Now I need to give my answer correct to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to have to come to my calculator here and go, all right, what is 100 divided by 9 pi? And my answer is going to be 3.5. I'll round that up to 4. So it's going to be 3.54. That's correct, equals h. So what I'm saying here is that when my radius is equal to 3, my height will be equal to 3.54. And when I put all these together, I should get a volume of 100. So that is my first combination that I'm going to be giving. Now, the back of the book doesn't have answers. And the reason why it doesn't have answers is because there's an infinite amount of solutions here. So it can't give everything. So how can I check if this is correct? How can I check if this is correct? To check, I'm going to sub in values and see if my volume equals 100, because it should if I've done this correctly. So I'm going to come here now and I'm going to go, well, I know that volume equals pi r squared h. If I now sub in 3 into my radius spot, and my h I'm saying is 3.54. Now, if I times these all together, I should get out a volume of 100. Fingers crossed. Let's hope this works. So pi times 3 squared times 3.54, that's going to be equal to 100. Now, as you can see, it's not exactly 100. And the reason why it's not 100 exactly is because I've rounded off a decimal point here. If I didn't round off a decimal and instead just used the exact value of 100 over 9 pi, then it would be exactly 100. But because I've rounded, it's not exact. But as you can see, this worked. So we can give this a big tick, even though there aren't answers in the back of the book. By subbing the values back in, we can, validate that we've done this correctly. And now I want you to do this 3 times. So we've done it once. So this is combination 1, combo 1. So this right here is combo 1. So the combination of R is 3 and H is that. That works. Now I'd have to do it again. So let's get rid of my that is a very nice looking cylinder right there, but we'll have to get rid of it. And now we'll do it again. So let's figure out combo 2. And you're going to go through exactly the same process. You should pause the video and see if you can do this yourself. So I'm going to go pi r squared h. I know that 100 is my volume. Now, instead of letting r equal 3, we could let it equal whatever. The smaller the better. The smaller the better. So, if I was doing this question, you know what I would do? I would just let r equal 1, because that's we're going to reduce problems by doing that. And then solve for h. So I'm going to get 100 equals pi. I'll put a 1 into this spot. 1 squared is h. Now this is pretty easy because 1 squared is just 1. So I'm going to get 100 equals 1 pi h. Now you wouldn't put a 1 there, would you? Because you don't need it. You just write pi h. Now I need to get h by itself. I need to get h by itself. To do that, I'm going to have to do what? I'm going to have to divide both sides by pi. I'm going to have to divide both sides by pi, because when I do that, when I divide both sides by pi, those pi's go away. I've just got a h on this side now, and that means I have 100 over pi on this side. I now need to figure out what is 100 over pi. Let's clear my calculator. 100 over pi is equal to 31.83. Okay, so that's going to be 31.83 equals my height. So that means when r is equal to 1, now how did I write this before? Yeah, when r is equal to 1, h is equal to 31.83. Remember, you should always check your answer. To check your answer, what you're going to do is you're just going to sub that back into our original equation. So we're going to go, let me write it out so we're just all on the same page here. I'm going to sub these values to check, sub in values. So volume equals pi r squared h. So I'm saying that my volume should be equal to 100 when this is equal to 1 and my h is 31.83. Let's double check that this works. It should pi times 1 squared, which is just 1, but whatever. 31, whoa, that's not a 1. 31.83, this should be equal to 100, and it's equal to 99.99. Now again, that's close enough for us. Remember, because we're rounding off our height here, it's not going to be exact. If it was exact, if I came here and just hit enter and bring this down, and instead of putting 31.83, I put in the exact value, and my exact value is 100 pi. If I put this in, 100 pi, it will get out exactly 100. But because I'm using this approximate 31.83, it's not going to be exact. So that's correct. So again, we don't need those answers in the back of the book. We can check it ourselves by subbing in values. Okay, that is going to be combo 2. Combo 2. And you could do this with any number you choose. So you could let r be equal to 4, 5, 6. It doesn't matter as long as you are rearranging your equation correctly to get what h is, and then make sure you're double checking it, you're going to be fine. For my last combination here, I'm going to do something a little bit tricky. So I'm going to be doing something for my last combination here that's a bit trickier than what I've been doing previously, and I want you to see it. So I've got my volume equals pi r squared h. I know that my volume is 100 equals pi r squared h. I know my volume is v. Now, do you see that previously what I've been doing is by going let r equal 3, let r equal 1. Well, what if instead I said let h be equal to something? Let h be equal to, I don't know, 2. And then solve for r. That's not an r, that's a 2. Solve for r. So as you can see, this time I'm doing just the opposite. I'm letting h be equal to something and I'm solving for r. Let's see how we go with this. This way is going to be a bit trickier, and you'll be able to see why I didn't do this initially, because it's just a bit trickier. So I'm going to say 100 equals pi r squared, and then instead of h, I'm going to be putting in 2 because I'm subbing that value in. So I'm going to get 100 is equal to pi, now I'm going to put that 2 out the front, 2 pi r squared. All right, now I need to get rid of, I need just, well, eventually I want r by itself. But for the time being, let's just get r squared by itself. Let's just get r squared by itself. To get r squared by itself, I'm going to have to divide both sides by 2 pi. I'm going to have to divide both sides by 2 pi. Because if I do that, that will cancel with that, and I'll get this on this side. Happy days. I'm going to get 100 over 2 pi. But now we come to the, this is the tricky part now. I've got r squared is equal to this. I need r by itself. I've got r squared at the moment. Now, let me show you how to do this first, and then I'll go back and show you why this happens. What you're going to do is you're going to square root both sides. That's what you're going to do. You're going to square root both sides. Now, that you might be thinking, why on earth are you doing that? Let's just pause that thought for a moment. Just believe me for the time being. I'll go back and explain this. But when you want to get rid of a squared, like here, r squared, you do the opposite. And the opposite of squaring is square rooting. So I'm going to square root both sides to get rid of that. And now I've just got r on this side. So again, I'll go back and explain why that happened. But let's just, for the time being, just leave it like that. Now I need to figure out what this is. So let's come to our calculator. Second this button to get a square root symbol. I'm doing that, 100, and then 2 pi. I'm going to get 3.98. Now I'm going to round up, so it's going to be 3.99. 3.99 is equal to r. So that means when h is equal to, now what did I say h was again? I've forgotten. When h is equal to 2, r will be equal to 3.99. So to check whether this is correct, to check my solutions, because remember there are no answers in the back of the book, so you need a way of checking it yourself. What we're going to do is I'm going to take my original equation, pi r squared h, and I'm going to sub in my r value of 3.99 squared, and then my h value of 2, and this should give me 100 out. Fingers crossed. This is let's hope this works. 3.99 squared times h of 2, bang, we got it, 100 point. And again, it's a bit off because we've rounded, but that's all we need. So that is combo 3. We did it. And that's how you do these questions. Now, I want to go back for a second and just talk about this, because you're probably like, why on earth did you square root? That makes no sense. So let's just talk about it. And let's talk about it by using a simple example. Because, you know, if we go to too complicated examples, it's too hard. What if I gave you this problem? What if I told you, now let me think of a number. What if I told you 4 was equal to a squared? Now remember, a squared means a times a is equal to 4. Well, what would a be? Well, a would just be 2, right? Because 2 times 2 is equal to 4. All well and good. So you know that a is going to be equal to 2. You know that a is going to be equal to 2. No big surprise there. Well, what's a quicker way that we could do that? Well, what we could do is we could say, well, I'm square rooting this side and I'm square rooting this side. The square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a. So in the same way that, you know, the square root of 4, well, 2 times 2 is equal to 2, so that my answer is 2, because the square root of 4 is 2, because 2 times 2 is 4. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Well, if I have the square root of a squared, well, that's just a times a, right? And that means that the square root of a squared is just a. And that's what's happening here. That's how what we're doing. We're undoing things to figure out what a would actually be. And now, you know, the power of checking your answer by subbing it in, I could then go, well, what you're telling me is 4 is equal to a squared. Well, if I let a be equal to 2, that's 2 squared. 4 is equal to 4. That's a true statement. The world makes sense. So that's why I square rooted both sides there. But again, that third combo, that's a more tricky example. And if you wanted to, you don't have to do it that way. You could just stick to letting r be equal to something instead of what we've done over here. And let me highlight this in blue, letting h be equal to something. That's how you do this question. Hopefully this made sense. Make sure to check your answers with your calculators over here. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next one.